The debate over special needs assistant allocations has been back in the spotlight after the government paused its review following the widespread concern from parents, teachers and unions. Now, many schools have been told they could see reductions in SNA support next September, leaving families and staff anxious about what this could mean for children who rely on these vital supports. Joining us now is Renee Hayes, a primary school teacher with 20 years experience across mainstream and special education settings, a former SNA tutor and parent of a child with complex needs. Renee, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks for having me. I hope I can contribute in some way to the ongoing conversation.
Well, given the billing I just gave you there, Renee, I would say so. I mean, that is quite extensive experience, teaching across both mainstream and special education settings. And I know your experience of SNAs goes beyond your own teaching and having a child with complex needs. But can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and your circumstances?
Well, yes. So I am a Mary I graduate 2006, worked mostly in mainstream education and by accident ended up working in a special class for autism. Within my first number of years, qualified, absolutely fell in love with it. And at the time I was back into mainstream because the circumstances changed in the school around teacher allocations in the special class. But it always stayed with me, I suppose. That love of special education, I brought some strategies back into the classroom with me and saw how effective that could be. And then got married, all the rest of it, moved from Tip to Clare and have been working in a school in Clare in the last 10 years or so as a mainstream special education teacher supporting pupils with additional needs who would be in mainstream classes. Have been on leave, for full transparency, since 2023 with my own son, CJ. The name might be recognisable to some because we've had to do a lot of petitioning and advocacy like so many more. He's 4 now, so he's at the preschool stage, but the primary school thing is quickly coming up on us. And, you know, it really does open your eyes to be on the parent side of it. It certainly does.
Okay.
I've done what I've can while I've been on leave to kind of try and keep in touch with special education. So I have done some substitute work in special schools as well. And, you know, I've been privileged always to work alongside the best of teachers and SNAs. And at one time in my life, I worked in adult education, tutoring special needs assistants. And I will just finish my blurb by saying this. You know, the men and women who came into those classes and what they had to offer and how passionate they were heading out into the workplaces of schools and special classes, with their special needs assistant training, it was unmatched. And I hope, you know, parents listening will hear this and feel comfort from that and know that we're all in this together. Teachers, SNAs, principals, school staff, parents, we're all on the same page here. We all want to support our SNAs in this and to get a better decision over the line here.
Yeah, so I mean, clearly on both sides of the fence, be it in the classroom or as a parent yourself, you've a lot of experience in this on these matters. And, you know, we heard yesterday chatting about this, that actually it's not about, the way to go about this isn't about reducing the SNA allocation, that there now more than ever, there are more children who need SNAs and more children with differing, maybe perhaps more complex needs, that actually it is more SNAs that we need. So when you heard initially about this review of SNA allocations, what was going through your own head, you know, being the experience you have being a teacher and a parent of a child with complex needs, hearing that, Renee?
Well, I would say first off, Alan, you know, total confusion, you know, but the main thing that I want to get across here, because I agree wholeheartedly with everything that was said by your wonderful speakers yesterday. You know, a core issue as a teacher within this, as a member of school staff working with children who have special needs, is timing and transparency. You know, time and time again, we feel that these circulars and statements and, you know, information comes out into the media before schools are even privy to that information. And it's almost like these decisions are made without consultation with the people that are, as I said in my message to you yesterday, on the front lines, dealing with these situations day by day.
Yeah, do you feel as if, Renee, there was a lack of transparency and consultation with schools, parents and pupils on this, that you all heard at the same time without any prior warning that there was going to be this review of SNA allocations.
100%. And I know departmental bodies will come back and say there's been amendments to the Disability Act. There's the circular from 2014 outlining the primary and secondary care tasks. There was a review of the SNA role in 2018. There was a toolkit rolled out relatedly in 2024, giving more detail to what would constitute a primary or a secondary care task. But every time one of these documents arises, it just brings further questions to the people who are on the front lines. For the children, for their parents, for special needs assistants, special education teachers, class teachers, principals, there's just utter confusion, and that would not exist if there were better communication between the two.
I can only imagine if you're working in a school that was perhaps already told their allocations might be cut. We know Flagmount would have been affected by that. What impact that uncertainty would have on staff and pupils, and also really on the morale. And I'm sure that school would be fielding a lot of phone calls and messages from concerned parents.
100%. I mean, realistically, it's an impossible situation. Because more than ever, and this is why the timing aspect is just so confusing, parents are talking about their children with complex needs not fitting anywhere. The school are doing everything they can. It's still not working. Parents are reporting this. Schools are reporting this. Children of an age and of an ability to verbalise it are able to acknowledge as well that things are not working. So already as it stands, with the level of allocations that are there, things are still very stressed in special education provision with the amount of allocated SNAs that we already have.
From your perspective, what do you think has prompted suggestions to reduce SNA numbers in some schools? Why do you think the department would want to even address this? I know, they've talked about the numbers of SNAs will rise to 25,000 by 2026. Perhaps they felt it was already a sufficient number, or perhaps even, which I know you and our guests yesterday would be aghast at, perhaps too many. What do you think was behind the moves on this?
Well, I hate to say it, but definitely financial aspects would be one. There's always funding needed in education, and you're, as the person in charge of that, trying to think where best this funding can go. So to me, that is one factor in the decision. Unless there is the open communication that we discuss, we're always going to have anxiety and wondering about the unknown. What has led to this? Why are they taking away some SNAs? Where are they going to put the money that they're pulling back by not having so many? Is it going to somewhere useful in education? Is it going to be a repurposing of the SNA role? And when you have these hundreds of questions floating around in the unknown, it leads to frustration. It leads to, a divide between the decision makers and the people on the front lines. And that's not useful for anyone.
Do you see it perhaps maybe as a short-sighted initial move or decision that if it was a cost-cutting measure, that they might save money in reducing SNA allocations, but in the process of depriving some children of the services and great support and help of an SNA, that actually it may cost the government in other aspects of that child's life as they develop in other areas, that actually the government will ultimately lose out?
Loaded question there, Alan, and so many parts to it, and again, harking back to your listener yesterday, in particular, the parent of two, I think, adult children now with additional needs who've come through some aspect of schooling. There's so many levels to this. It's not just one department. There's so many government departments involved, because there are children arriving into school undiagnosed with issues that only come to light as they become older in the school system. So they've already been let down, and following on from that, the school are then trying to pick up the pieces. So 100% the government will feel the effects of cutting back on SNAs, because as much as it is good practice, and it is widely done by school staff to feed assistance to a child when they show more independence in being able to do certain parts of their own care, other children are constantly coming on stream needing care in the meantime. So it makes no sense to remove the SNAs that are already allocated to a school, because there's already children waiting, just ready and waiting, that need extra care as one child perhaps begins to show just a small sign of needing slightly less care.
Just finally, Renee. Go ahead.
You know, that when I refer to other documents that have rolled out in recent years, you know, the departments will always say that, look, they've been in schools, there's been inspectorate, there's been SNA reviews, they've discovered this, they've discovered that. It's not clearly communicated to us as a school when those things arise. It's, you know, an official document that comes out, we're reading it, we're confused, we have questions, they're left unanswered. It's just a vicious circle that goes round and round. But in the end, you know, the point I want to bring it back to is that the people on the front lines are the ones who are left to pick up the pieces.
Do you take any comfort, though, Renee, from the fact that the department have paused this review, that it seems on the surface, at least they are listening to the concerns, albeit you and others would say, well, they should have consulted in the first place? And do you have any confidence the Department of Education will now learn from their mistakes and engage meaningfully with teachers, SNAs and parents going forward?
It is hard to have full confidence. There's a break of trust here, a break of trust. You know, open communication is one of the most important things when you're working with the most vulnerable pupils in our school population. Those pupils will always need very much a collaborative team effort that has to involve parents, pupils, school staff and these outside bodies as well, all working together. I don't have full trust that this pause will be used effectively, but I'm hopeful that it will give rise to more open communication.
We can only hope so, and we will be watching this space on that. Renee, really appreciate you joining us to share your experience and concerns around this issue. Thank you so much for being with us on Morning Focus.
Thank you, Alan. Bye now.
Bye. That's Renee Hayes, primary school teacher with extensive experience, 20 years worth across mainstream and special education settings, a former SNA tutor and a parent